All right, I think we'll get started. This is our monthly portfolio update. So, a high-level overview of what's been happening in the modern work and AI space, largely focused on Microsoft over the last month. Hang of a lot of development happened over the past month. So, the idea of these webinars is to give you an idea of what we deem really important from the sectors that we work within. So just some housekeeping, please ask any questions in the Q&A section. I've got Emily who's watching that, and she'll respond to any questions, and I'll come to any questions that are webinar related at the very end of this. I'll share information at the end about how you can get in touch, and we will also be sending a copy of the recording and by email to all of the registrations that are here. So my name is David Campbell. I'm the product manager for AI Modern Work at Wavenet. It's an area that's been incredibly exciting over the past couple of years, largely because of its transformative space with generative AI and where that's come into. I have a Microsoft certification in AI transformation, and I'm going to be pasting some information in the chat a bit later on my LinkedIn profile and the ways to get a hold of me. I use the LinkedIn site to post quite regularly on opinion pieces and also keep you updated through the month. So a good way to kind of keep in touch. So, like I said, summarizing the main events over the past month, a hang of a lot happened, so we've got a lot to go through. And I'll also share where you can join the webinars every month, but we'll talk about the updates basically every month. So starting off with Microsoft, the big events this month was probably Microsoft Build and co-work announcement going general availability. Those are the key ones, but there's also been a few surprises. At Microsoft Build, probably one of the biggest surprises was that Microsoft had now launched 7 of its own AI models. And this is a big shift as to where Microsoft's played in the AI space up until now. They were largely reliant on other AI model providers. So OpenAI's ChatGPT was the foundation with Microsoft, and more recently they've partnered up with Anthropic to deliver Claude as a model. But what they've released at Build is their own model. So we can only suggest what we think that's going to mean to the market, but it does probably mean that Microsoft is going to offer a competitive model to the main competitive models in the future. And that might mean that they're less dependent on the other 2 models in the future. But we can only speculate as to what that means. We do know that Microsoft, and it's important to know that they've invested heavily in both Anthropic and OpenAI. They've invested $13 billion into OpenAI and $5 billion into Anthropic. So they're heavily invested in those 2 companies. But we do know that the 2 of them are launching IPOs. So I think that's probably why Microsoft have launched their own models. But it's quite an interesting change that we've seen this month. They're also trying to position themselves as almost the good guys in the AI world. They're heavily talking about a philosophy of humanist superintelligence is what they were using at the Build conference. So talking about how responsible AI is very important to them and how they're distinguishing themselves in the market with things like data compliance, commercial provenance, and training for the training data, and guaranteeing enterprise ownership of the outputs and the data that's used. So that's where Microsoft's positioning themselves and how they see themselves as a differentiator in the market. They also launched something called WebIQ. So this one was one I was struggling a bit to understand. So I used Copilot to explain it to me, and it was really, really good because I didn't get it the first time around, and then I asked it to simplify until I eventually got it. But essentially what it means is that this will give your browser the ability to not just search and respond with answers, but it gives the ability for AI tools to plug into the browser and get kind of search abilities at an intelligent layer. So if you think Google will help you find answer, WebIQ will help AI generate answers using a search-like model. So that explanation helped me understand WebIQ, and hopefully I've communicated that well enough for you to understand. The other one that was quite interesting was they had launched something called Project Solaro, which is the agent-first devices that they're bringing in. And when I first saw this at Build, my immediate reaction was Amazon Echo, right, with maybe a better version of Alexa. But what they're positioning it as an always-on agent. So they are bringing in AI into devices. So one of the examples they used was things like the ID cards that you wear around your neck when you go into the office, that these can actually be intelligent and can do things like voice recordings and interact as well with your environment. So some interesting things to keep an eye on there. Copilot has had a redesign. So as you can see, I think the main ones here are on the top left. You'll see the little 9 square box there. That's where your apps are, and I'll show you that in the next screen. You'll also see chat and co-work as a toggle option. And down the bottom, an area that it'll actually show you what you're licensed for. There's been a lot of confusion with the free version of Copilot, people not sure whether they have the paid for version or the free version. Microsoft has simplified that a little bit by calling the paid version Copilot Premium now. So that makes it a little bit easier to understand, because in the bottom left, you'll see M365 Copilot Premium if you do have the paid for license. The main difference between the free version and the paid license is integration into your work environment, which Microsoft calls Work IQ. So that means that it can integrate with your email, with your organization. It's intelligent, it knows who you work with. It can access your SharePoint files, your OneDrive folder, and it's intelligent around all of those layers of input as well. So that's really the main change there. So if you click on the button on the top there, you'll also see that this is where Create is, and Create is where you can generate things like infographics or images. And notebooks, I'm going to be talking a bit more about that as well later on today, as well as all the apps. So not a major change to how the layout is, but Microsoft is claiming that the load times are reduced by 50%. So it's definitely improved the speed of Copilot. Right, I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about co-work, because co-work became general availability this month. And it fundamentally changes how we're going to pay for AI in the future. So I'm going to start off with a quick video. So really what you watched there was something that came out with, it was probably the reason why Microsoft partnered up with Anthropic, because Claude had released Claude Cowork. And to think of the real difference is that whereas Copilot would be very good at being an assistant to you, so you can sort of query things, you can summarize things, whereas the co-work element can handle multiple tasks. So you could ask it, and what you saw in the video there was it was able to create a multitude of tasks to take you towards something, and it can run in the background. It can run all day, for that matter. It can do things like market research. It can create slides. It can create training decks, create documents, and it can do multiple things at the same time. So yeah, so basically, it's designed to delegate complex works, and it takes away from being an assistant to actually doing the work for you. So there's been a lot of talk around this over the last few months, because a lot of people were able to access it via the Frontier experience in Microsoft, which is sort of early access before things are generally available. And Microsoft are claiming that already half of the Fortune 500 are already using Claude Cowork. And a lot of people are getting really excited as to what this could do. But what we do know about it was that it was really expensive to run, and it wasn't going to be free forever. So what we found out with the general availability was exactly how that was going to be priced. So the fundamental difference now is you need a license, a Copilot premium license for a seat at the table. That doesn't give you Cowork. It only gives you access to Cowork. You need to additionally pay for the usage-based billing. So the Copilot premium license will still get you access to everything you have access to now. You can still use it as an assistant. Nothing changes there. But the Cowork element, the multitask sort of designation, requires usage-based billing as well. So that was, a bit of a shift, and it caused a little bit of panic in the market. How is that going to work exactly? And also, how do you estimate what the cost is going to be? So Microsoft came up with some ideas to give you an idea of what that means. So a luck task, for example. So basically getting a status update of something you would do on a Monday morning, talking about your priorities, prepare me for the week type thing, that would be considered a luck task, and would use about 100 to 300 Copilot credits. That would cost you about $1 to $3 to create. Now, you can easily see that if you do this every day and you get a team of people doing this across a business, this could add up really, really quickly if you're using Cowork to do things that really Copilot can do on its own. So there's no reason you would use Cowork to do a light task like this. You could definitely do this in Copilot Premium. So we're going to have to very carefully choose which model we use to do things, because things like a heavy task, so on the right-hand side where you're looking at some data analyst work where you're putting in a lot of heavy information for it to look at, that could easily cost you between $7 and $25 for a single run. So we're moving into an era now where we're going to have to weigh up cost versus the value that AI is going to bring us. And we're going to have to probably be involved in quite a lot of business cases to justify where this is going to be used. We're also going to see different user personas involved in this. So you've got your knowledge workers, your management, your customer-facing knowledge workers, and technical workers. And a combination of the persona-based as well as the task is going to define how many credits are consumed, and it'll give you an idea of the cost for that. So we know that Copilot credits is going to be the currency you'll use to buy this, and very similar to an Azure pay-as-you-go model, we'll now see the same thing done from a pay-as-you-go perspective. You'll buy Copilot credits for 1 cent per credit. You are also able to buy prepaid Copilot credits where you'll get a better cost per credit, but you'll have to commit to that upfront. You'll also find that more credits will be used depending on the model that you use. So if you use a light model or an older model, it'll cost less because the computing is not as heavy. The size and complexity of the data you're using will affect the token cost, and the number of steps to complete the task will also affect this. So really, it's going to create a bit of a minefield as to how we work out what the token estimate's going to be for doing something. We do have access to a Copilot credit planning calculator. So I can share this with you if you like. We are actually building our own one, which will be ready by close of business tomorrow. So I can share a link with you on that calculator, and you'll be able to use it to get an idea of how much this is going to cost you. And that'll hopefully give you an idea of what you should be budgeting towards. It's important to note that Cowork is not enabled by default. It's something that you have to enable. So you're not going to get a sudden surprise that you're going to have these huge bills as a result of Cowork and everyone shifting behavior. It's going to switch on the 1st of July, where it's billing for those that have opted in for Cowork, and you can't opt into Cowork unless you've actually set it up to pay for pay-as-you-go billing. So it's not something you could accidentally incur a cost on. It would have to be quite deliberate. So what I would suggest is if you've got power users in the business, those that are very close to the problem, that have already seen significant benefits with using AI and are starting to find examples where this is delivering a very clear case for a return of investment, you may want to consider giving them Copilot Cowork if they want that. But there's ways that you can assign a budget to them. So you could, for example, assign a $20 credit limit to that individual. And this is not actually new. So if you look at ChatGPT and Claude, the models that came out sort of independently of Microsoft, they had the free plan, which was very similar to Copilot's, the free version that you get. It's got some limits to it. ChatGPT even has ads available in some country. So they all had that free version. Additionally, they had the paid for version, which was like Copilot Premium, but what Copilot Premium gives you is access into that work IQ. So access into the intelligent work environment that you work with, your emails, your SharePoint, your OneDrive. They had that paid version. But additionally, ChatGPT and Claude both had the pro versions, and these were fixed rates per month that was significantly more than the $20 per month. Claude had 5x and 20x. 5x was $100 per month, and max 20x was $200 per month. So this is not a new concept. The only difference with what Microsoft is doing is saying that we can offer it as a pay-as-you-go model with a cap. So instead of paying, say, $200 per month, you could say, we'll turn on pay-as-you-go, but we'll limit you to $200 per month. So you might pay less. So that's the real difference. And it's important to know that this is only going to be for very specific users that are using the co-work function. This is not for everyone. The standard Copilot license will be fine for everybody. And also just a note on Claude Code, for example, which is where the majority of users were that were using the 200x model, because they were actually found they were able to code significantly faster, and it had a huge ROI to it. They also had an API pay-as-you-go model that was available as well. So it's important, and I apologize for the quality of these slides. This is very new. The announcement only came out a few days ago, and the training only happened this week. So I had to screenshot some videos. So I apologize if the quality is not great. But what I can show you on these screens is that you're able to limit the monthly spending in your admin center. So you've got various ways that you can do that. You can set a monthly budget at a tenant level. So you could say, we only want to have, in this case, 50,000 credits available at a tenant level. You can set it at a user base limit. So you can say that Dave in product management is only allowed 1,000 credits per month, and that's the budget assigned to that individual. You're also able to create spending policies where, for example, you could assign it to a group of users. So you could say, for example, I'm going to create a group for marketing, and I will give marketing a budget of 50,000 credits per month. And it doesn't just give them that as a hard limit that will cap them. It also warns them and sends reminders in their chat that they're coming to the end of that cycle. And then finally, you are able to buy credits upfront. So if you start to see that buying the credits for co-work is something that you're going to regularly need to do, you are able to buy those upfront in bundles, so it will give you better value. And that's assigned to an Azure subscription, which allows you to do that pay-as-you-go. So you're going to get a lot of visibility and control, and I'll send some information in the chat now as well, if you want to learn more about how Copilot credits work. But I think what's important to know, and my takeaway from this, is that FinOps is going to become very much a part of how we deal with AI. We're in a period in time where AI is incredibly cheap. The models are sort of fighting each other to get market share. And while a lot of companies haven't necessarily rolled out the $30 a month Copilot Premium, this is about as cheap as it's going to get. It is going to get more expensive because the investments that these companies have made into each other, as well as the data centers requirement for this compute, is meaning that FinOps and building ROI models are going to become a key part of ROI of AI. So Copilot Chat versus Copilot Cowork. It's been, as I said, it's been quite hard to get people on the idea of paying for the Copilot Premium license. We are starting to see traction there, but it's still not moving as fast as it should, because these tools are truly transformative. I don't think we're going to see many horror stories about surprise costs, but there probably will be a few around. But as I said, it's not something that you can accidentally get into. It's something that you have to be quite deliberate in the setup. You're going to need a very clear use case for Claude Cowork. It's not something you're going to be able to experiment with. So I think the days of experimentation with AI is probably going to drop a little bit now that there's a cost to running co-work additionally on top of the premium license, which wasn't a cost for the past 3 months if you were part of the Frontier model. So why has this changed? Why these models change? And I think the original thinking was that with this was it would work like an insurance model where we would get mass adoption of Copilot, and a few users would be heavy computational users, but they would be subsidized by the sort of light users. And I think that was the original thinking on the pricing. But Microsoft, Claude, ChatGPT, and all of the AI models have had to shift focus into how they're doing the pricing model, and that's why it's changed. So yeah, quite a big change when it comes to AI and how it costs. The next big announcement at Microsoft Build was Microsoft Scout, and I've got a little video on that as well. Right, so now we've got Scout, right? And how does Scout fit into this mix as well? So if Copilot Chat is your assistant that you can kind of work with, Copilot Co-work is an assistant you can give a series of tasks to do and to complete on its own. Microsoft Scout is an always-on assistant. So it's actually doing work for you on your behalf, and it's always available. So if you think about earlier on when I spoke about Project Solaris and its devices, this is where Scout's going to start integrating into. It's going to be an always-on available agent that can work with you. So yeah, Copilot, you ask, it answers questions, it drafts content, it summarizes information. For the majority of knowledge workers, Microsoft Copilot, the $30 a month license is going to be perfect for your use case. You won't really need anything else. For your really power users, for your developers, for those that are evolving your business and changing, applying ROIs to making business processes work better, co-work is for that kind of user. Definitely power user, definitely for departments that are seeing early advancements in AI. And Microsoft Scout, think of it as a personal assistant that's always available. So it can work in the background, it can prepare you for meetings, it can monitor your inbox, so it can do something that sort of level. So that's kind of how the three models fit together. As far as AI in SharePoint goes, this also is something that you would need to turn on. But what it does mean is that your SharePoint site, which is really key to your Copilot working well, you now no longer need SharePoint skill to build and edit SharePoint sites. You can use natural language to create and edit sites, build pages, libraries, and pages. So that's quite a powerful thing that's available now. It was originally called the Knowledge Agent. They've now called it AI in SharePoint, calling it what it is on the tin, I guess. What's also important is that it enriches content automatically with its metadata to make it Copilot ready, so that anything that you're using in the SharePoint site becomes available for your Copilot agents to reason with and to use. The other one is federated connectors. So if you think about how Copilot could work, is it's great that it can search the internet. It's great that it, with Work IQ, that it can search your SharePoint site and your OneDrive. But what if you want to connect it to other tools, other line of business applications? You want to connect it to your billing tool, your CRM tool, another form of database that you want to get access to. This is when you would start using things like Copilot connectors, and you would use MCP. So how you would integrate your line of business applications into it. But also in the demo video, you saw Monday.com being used. So you could use another third-party application. So you can connect all of these to your Copilot source now. So one of the ones, it has an example of a few of them. So if you've got Notion, HubSpot, Canva, these are all out-the-box plug-in connectors. So HubSpot, for example, is a CRM, so you're able to plug it into your Copilot. So from your chat, you could ask questions about what's in your CRM. Show me the largest deals that happened over the past month regarding this customer. And you can do that within your Copilot experience, not having to go into it. So really powerful for integrating your experience. In Researcher, for example, you're now able to research things like your Power BI platform and other other data sources, including in your Researcher. So that's really powerful in what you can do there. In your chats as well, I've kind of covered this already, but integration into other applications out the box. And you can also build custom connections as well. So you're able to build connectors into your other applications that aren't out-the-box connectors. Microsoft Notebooks also had some changes as well. It's got a sort of clearer layout on how you can work. So to give you an idea of what Notebooks is, if you think about Copilot, it's researching everything available in the public knowledge base. It's searching internet, it's searching everything the model has been trained on. We call it a large language model. So it's learning from everything available. What Notebooks does is creates a small language model. So it looks after a very small amount of information and gives you responses based on that. Now, where that's useful is if you were running a project and you were going to feed the project with some resources that were specific for that project. And that's where you can see the references on the left-hand side. It could be emails that you were involved in. It could be notes that you've taken from meetings. It could be transcriptions from meetings. It could be websites that you've found that are relevant. And using that limited content, you're now able to query it. You're now able to ask questions. You're now able to build new content out of it. So really, really powerful. This came from a Google tool called Notebook LM, which was hugely popular for building these kind of things. And you'll probably see, if you're on LinkedIn lately, you'll see the infographics are everywhere. Well, that's where they're coming from. Infographics are coming from Notebook LM, and they're coming from Notebook. So if you want to design your own fancy infographics, this is a tool that I would start playing with. You can also, there'll be a lot more development on here as they try and make this more competitive to Notebook LM. But to give you an idea, Notebook LM allows you to do things like create podcasts with the content that's there, create videos from the content, create sales enablement PowerPoint decks. So it's really, really powerful for using a fixed content to deliver an output. The other big one, and this just shows you how the news is changing so quickly in the month. Claude released Fable 5 on the 9th of June. And Fable is powered by a set of tools called Mythos. And Mythos kind of got a bit of a nefarious name a few months ago when it was decided to be pulled from the market because it was deemed as too dangerous for the open markets. So Fable 5 was the first product that's been built on that learning model. And one of the criticisms that Microsoft has had up until now is that it was quite slow to release the models. So one of the arguments against using Copilot was ChatGPT is more advanced or Claude's more advanced. And it was based on the same technology, but because Microsoft was very strong on its governance, it was slightly slower in releasing it. And just to show how much faster it's got, Claude released its version on the 9th of June. Microsoft announced that it was available on its platform on the 10th of June. So one day later, it was available. So Microsoft fixed that problem when it comes to that period of adopting the other companies' release cycles. What's interesting, though, is just 2 days later, on the 12th of June, the US government issued a alert to Claude and said that it had to be able to control who could use this around the world, which meant that Claude had no way of controlling that, and they pulled it from the markets just a couple of days later. So within 3 days, a launch by Claude, launched by Microsoft, pulled from the market on the 12th of June, and that's how quickly the technology is changing this month. Something else that's from the agents that have been released. This was one that was released in June as well. It's called the Learning Agent. This does things like give you an AI tip of the day. It's going to have more and more things integrated into it. So it's got LinkedIn Learning, for example, integrated into this. And you'll also be able to start integrating things like your in-house learner management programs. So if you've got training or onboarding, these are the kind of things you're going to be able to build into it and access it from Learning Agents. So it's still quite basic now. I have played around with a little bit, but quite exciting as to what it could probably deliver. So some current promotions. So most of the promotions that were running until the end of June have been extended till end of December. So you are going to see the 15% off Copilot Business being extended until the end of December this year. And you're also starting to see that all of the traditional bundles, the M365 Basic, Standard, and Premium, now come with a SKU that includes Copilots. So what I would suggest, if you've been buying Copilot Business independently, set those to expire at the end of their term, and then when that does, upgrade your existing licenses to the with Copilot model. We'll save you a little bit of money doing it that way because the bundle prices does come at a better price. So just for preparing for Microsoft Copilot, because this is something that needs to be done. It's a very powerful tool, but if you give it access to all the data in your environment, like I said, WorkIQ plugs into your SharePoint and OneDrive. You just need to be quite careful of a few things. So there's a couple of things you need to be aware of. Firstly, you need to do the basics. You need to make sure that you've locked down your identity, that you've got MFA in place for all your users, and that you've removed any unnecessary admin access. You need to be looking at labeling your data, so making sure that you classify your sensitive data so that it cannot be used as part of the learning model, and making sure you're applying sensitivity levels across your organization so that you're not making sure that documents are being seen internally by people they shouldn't be seen. And that's also important when you audit your SharePoint sites and OneDrive access, to make sure you don't have that shared with all policy that is often what's being used by people. You need to also apply some data loss policies for your key data. Make sure that it can't be used in other tools. And then finally, you need to be able to have visibility and monitoring into what's available. So as Wavenet, one of the services we offer, and because we've got such a strong security background, this is an area we're particularly strong at helping our customers achieve this. We also have a product called Copilot Launchpad, which is essentially exactly what it says in the tin. Really, it gets you started with Copilot in a 30-day adoption framework journey. And the way we do that is with phase one, we align the leadership in the business. We set up an AI council. We make sure that the technical foundations are ready. So we make you aware of what you need to be fixing in the business and where the gaps are. We then enable 10 champions within the business, normally across different business units. We enable them with some training and show them how to use the tools. In phase three, we start looking at use cases within the business and start mapping the individuals from the champions into things that will actually deliver value in your business. And then finally, we go back to leadership and we say to them, right, this is what we've discovered, and this is what we would suggest is your roadmap for adopting AI and where you should be going from there. So it's an all-inclusive package. It costs £5,000. It's the full 30-day program, and it includes the 10 Copilot licenses for your champions for a year, which on its own would cost about £1,800. So you're looking at about £3,000 plus the licensing. So a really sort of affordable way of getting started with Copilot, and this will get you started in a structured way without risk to the business. So in PowerPoint, an exciting one that a lot of people have been asking for is we now have brand kits available in PowerPoint. So I haven't played with this too much because I only got a launch this month, but one of the common ones that I've heard is it's great that we can use PowerPoint, but it creates these fantastically visual looking decks, but it doesn't use our brand templates. And that's where the problem is. So we've got to spend all the time trying to reformat it into our brand decks. Well, this should fix that problem. So look out for brand kits. It's available now, and you're able to stop people using the wrong fonts, the wrong colors, and the wrong logos. Brand kits are available in the Microsoft Create, that button I showed you in the top left of Copilot, and that's where you can set up and build your kits if you don't have one, or import your existing kits if you've got one. And that includes things like logos and that. So when you're creating content, you can use your brand kits, which is quite powerful. Microsoft Word got a similar upgrade where you can now use your templates. So if you've got the branded templates that you use, Microsoft Word can do that as well. The other big one that's coming on the 1st of July is price increases. And you've got until Tuesday, close of business next week, to do something about that. But there's some serious price increases coming. This won't affect you on the 1st of July. if it'll only affect you on your subscription renewal. So if you're taking a new subscription from the 1st of July, it'll affect you. But if your subscription renews in September, October, that's when you'll see the price increase. Now, what we're starting to see with the enterprise ones is that the SKUs with no teams are rising at a higher percentage than the SKUs with teams. Now, if you remember, there was a stage where Microsoft had to offer suites without teams because it was seen as having a monopoly, and it was told by the EU regulations that it had to split, and that's why they had the suites with teams and the suites without teams. What you can see by the price increase here is what's clear is Microsoft is trying to push companies back to the enterprise SKUs with teams because the percentage increases are lower. So that's what we're starting to see. So if you're buying the suite without teams and then buying teams as a bolt-on, consider bundling them and bringing it back into the single SKU. The frontline SKUs are seeing some of the biggest increases. So if you're heavily involved with F1 or F3 SKUs, 33%, 25% increases coming there. So something that's going to significantly affect your budget if that's a line item that you're using. What's interesting in the business suites is probably what's not increasing. Business Premium is not seeing a price increase, and that's obviously the SKU that's Microsoft's hero product. That's where it wants to see its customers. So you can see across both with teams and without teams, there's no increase there. So that might mean that if you were considering premium, the price increase coming makes that jump to premium even more attractive for you. Something to consider there. So some of these are all receiving increases between 9 and 21% increase. A lot of these products haven't actually received major feature upgrades. It's just seeing a price increase across. And if you think about it, that investment into Anthropic, that investment into OpenAI, someone's got to pay for it, and this is where where the money seems to be coming from. So 1st of July, that's Wednesday. This is when this price increase comes. Some things you can do and how we can help you with that. You can run a health check with Wavenet before your subscription end term goes. We can look at your current 365 readiness, make sure that your license is optimized as possible. I would consider doing the bundle option if Copilot is something that you're looking at. Buy the bundles with Copilot together. Look at any current promotions that are running. On the 1st of July, Microsoft will release its new promotions for the year as well, because in July, Microsoft brings out its strategy for the following year as well. So there will definitely be promotions that come with that. And see if you're on SKUs that have 3-year SKUs, like the E5 and E7 SKUs, have 3-year term available. So if you're pretty stuck in what licenses you're going to use, consider those 3-year SKUs, and that'll be a way that you can lock in your prices. Something else we've developed, and I'm just going to switch what I'm presenting because this will be something that's quite useful. On our website, we've got a calculator, and this gives you a little hack that you can use to save yourself some money. So let's say, for example, if your core licenses that you use is, say, E3, for example, and you are buying for 300 users, and your subscription renews on the 1st of October, right? That's when the increase is going to affect you because it's the 1st of October. This is a little trick that you can use. If you buy a single E3 license before Wednesday, that'll cost you, it'll cost what, 32 quid for you to get that license. You'll effectively end up saving £11,000 over the subscription period by doing that, just by buying that single license. So the calculator is on our website. I'll share a link in the chat with you, but it's something you're going to have to act pretty quickly on, because as I said, Wednesday is the cutoff, that it won't work anymore. But do this calculation and see if you can save some money. And then how you handle that is, your existing subscription that expires in October, you set that to cancel and not auto-renew. And then when that license ends, you add all of those subscriptions to the one that you started now. So the single license becomes your 300 license tenants. And we can explain this to you in more information as well. But the website does have the little calculator that gives you kind of overview of how it works and some frequently asked questions. So that is Me, I'll check the Q&A to see if there's any questions, and I'll put in the chat some links and ways to reach out. Hopefully you found that quite valuable. We do this every month. It's a lot's happening, so we use this as a way that we can kind of consolidate everything that's happened over the past month. So it can get quite overwhelming if you're trying to follow all the news. We do that on your behalf. So hopefully you find this quite valuable and useful. And I'll check the Q&A. But if you don't have any questions, thanks very much for joining. Thanks for giving up your morning.